Welcome to the Strong Women's Club, episode number 98, Taking Time Off the Grid.
This is the Strong Women's Club, where successful women share their behind-the-scenes stories of how they got to where they are today. Join us.
Hi, everybody. I'm Edie Berg, and thank you so much for joining me here today. I've been away for a couple of weeks, and this time, instead of doing all of my podcast shows ahead of time, I took a real break from podcasting, 2 whole weeks. It's the first time in the 2 years of doing this podcast that I did not have a weekly show. And sometimes I have a show twice a week. I've never missed a week. And although I didn't leave with the thought ahead of time that I wouldn't do the show for 2 weeks, I also kind of had it in the back of my mind that would be okay if I took a little time off. Now, that might sound obvious to you, that of course it's okay to take some time off, but it isn't to me. It definitely wasn't an easy thing for me to do. Consistency is everything in a program like this, and this is a job. It's not a hobby. There's no room for letting things go. You can't just let your job go for a couple of weeks. But you do need to take some vacation time, which is why for the entire 2 years I never missed a show, including when I was on vacation or away for a while. I was super organized. I had a whole bunch of podcast shows done ahead of time so that my team can release it each week and take care of it for me. But this time things were a little bit different, mainly because I knew that in addition to going to New York City for business meetings, I was also going to do an off-the-grid vacation, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about soon. And this really gave me the permission to have a real vacation, to me, at least in my mind, and not just have a little bit of time off, but to really let things go a little bit. I don't mean, close the business, of course. What I mean is both practically speaking with the podcast and mentally speaking, just let it go and take the time off the grid to recharge, which is exactly why I did it. And it was really essential for me. So I'm going to talk about getting off the grid a little bit today, how I did it and why it was a worthwhile idea for me to do it. And probably, I think for most business people, if not all business people, it's imperative for you to take time off in a different way to how you would usually take time off. I'm not talking about taking a weekend off or, going away to Barcelona to see the city or going, to a rock concert in a different country. Those are fun times, and it's obviously it's time away from your work. So it's a change, and they say a change is as good as a holiday. But what I'm talking about is really getting away from it all, having no support. So what does it even mean, getting off the grid? Where the definition, I think, of getting off the grid is going to a place where it's not on the electricity grid, right? There's no infrastructural support. It does not mean that it's dirty or disgusting, and it certainly doesn't mean that it's cheap. In fact, it might cost more to get, that far away from things, and you could be in a very, very fancy and very place and a very well taken care of place. My husband and I went to Costa Rica, and we chose Costa Rica for a couple of reasons. One is that my husband is a butterfly enthusiast. He has spent many years chasing after and categorizing and collecting and learning about and teaching about butterflies. And Costa Rica, the butterfly population is phenomenal. It's really something out of this world. And his butterfly collection actually includes these incredibly gorgeous and large mahogany cabinets full of drawers of his butterfly collections, which he had been doing since, I guess, he was 15 years old. They are in our garage. They have not been touched for years. They've never been thrown out. They will not be thrown out. They will not be donated, and they will probably not be inherited because nobody wants them. Nobody wants that type of thing anymore. We can't give them to any kind of a library or science lab or school even. I mean, this is a really difficult thing to give away. As an aside, I've kind of given up hope of ever having that space in my garage. It's one of the points of being, smart in a marriage. It kind of means ignoring this gigantic box of dead butterflies in the garage. So that's obviously off topic, but that's one of the reasons we went to Costa Rica. And another reason we chose Costa Rica is that it's easy to get to from the United States, where my husband was already working, and I had some business meetings, which I'll discuss in another episode with you, in New York City. So we wanted to go to some place that was easy-ish to get to. So even though it was still a flight from Tel Aviv to New Jersey, and then from New Jersey to San Jose, which is the capital of Costa Rica, And then we took another flight in a tiny 20-seater plane to a little town called Golfito. Then we took a ferry across the bay, and then another 2-hour four-wheel drive trip to the tip of the Osa Peninsula near Corcovado Park, which is where we wanted to get to. It was still a relatively easy place to be. And we stayed also in another little place. It's a small treehouse community not too far from there. And it was amazing. It's a stunning jungle and animals and insects and very friendly people. And there were no other travelers because it's off season, and it's off season because it's raining all the time. It didn't rain that much while we were there. We were a bit lucky. We did have quite a bit of rain though. And we slept in these incredible bungalows in the tree. So they have floors and they have roofs with kind of a half wall and showers that are completely outside. So if it's raining, you're showering in the rain with cold water, which kind of made you already feel like you're on a true adventure and kind of thinking about how much you appreciate the warm water you have at home and how much you're roughing it and part of nature. So that was really very special. So it's really just a mosquito net between you and the outside, which is a jungle. And it's like camping really, but it's a bit nicer. It's actually a lot nicer. And we did have some solar powered lighting, which was very weak. So it was like for an hour a day. And there are these plugs that you can plug your things into to get to access the solar power. But there's no juice in there. There's no actual power in there. And apparently there's Wi-Fi there sometimes, but not when we were there. And it takes some time for you to adjust and for your mind to adjust. You know, for me, the first 4 nights when I was there, I had the most incredibly strange and vivid dreams every night. You can't even imagine, and I couldn't even imagine. And I remember them clearly enough to tell my husband all about them. And obviously my mind was just racing, even though I was feeling great. And then after those first 4 nights, nothing, like just deep, deep sleep for the rest of the vacation. And what do we do? What do you do when you go off the grid? What I did was I read a lot. And now I love to read. And during the year, I read a lot of business books about sales and about productivity and about leadership and on and on. I listen to podcasts all the time, but I'm talking about reading now, all about the same subjects is what I mean. And I also belong to this fantastic book club with the most brilliant teacher. So I get to read 6 very high quality books and learn about the authors and about their history and about the time periods and everything that goes around, that's around the books. So at least 6 times a year, I have the pleasure of doing that. And I've been doing that for 6 or 7 years. But here on this vacation, I read 3 novels and I loved every second of them. It was just pure joy. I felt so lucky to be able to have the time to just sit, above these tree canopies, looking out over the jungle, and then past the jungle, you have the ocean and the birds, these incredible scarlet macaws and the monkeys and all kinds of bugs and frogs around your feet. And it was stunning. So I got to read. Another thing that we did a lot was we hiked. We hiked a lot through the jungle. You have to take a guide because you can't just walk in the jungle. You get lost after about a meter or 2. And so you have to take a guide. But we did, and we hiked a lot through the jungles, and we through waterfalls and through rivers and monkeys, and again, huge, beautiful blue butterflies. And you have to, they recommend, and they even provide for you rubber boots to hike in so that the snakes can't get to you. And, they can't bite you if they want to, or if you step on one by accident. And we did some hiking, and we also talked. My husband and I, there are no phones and no emails to check and no social media. We ate very simple food that somebody else prepared for us, like kind of homemade local food. So for those of you who camp regularly, then this is probably a similar situation, but we don't camp because my husband doesn't like camping and my kids don't want to camp with me, or, they don't want to hang out with me for that long anymore. So the reasons why I think this is a very good reason for business people to get off the grid and do a restart for your business is 1, prevent burnout and recharge yourself. Honestly, I was getting really tired of social media and I didn't want to connect with anybody anymore. I didn't want to make any more posts on any type of social media. I don't want to read other people's posts. I didn't want to respond. And that's okay. If it's just for personal use. But if you have a business, an online business like mine, it's not okay. It's actually a crucial part of your day-to-day business. And it's essential, and you really have to do it. And I found myself dreading it, and not only dreading it, putting it off, procrastinating and just not doing it. So this break gave me the freedom of not checking it ever at all for the entire time. And I really needed it. The second reason for getting off the grid is that your creativity explodes. You start using your brain, which is kind of counterintuitive because you would think you use your brain all year long. And when you go on vacation, you just rest. But actually the opposite happened, at least to me. You have a lot of time, and a lot of time just staring out into the view or hiking and not thinking of anything else. And then boom, all of a sudden you're figuring out the solution to something at work, especially when you're not concentrating on it, and finding new solutions and maybe new ideas for new things. It was really a creativity turbo boost. I meditate in the mornings for 20 minutes, not every morning, but a lot of the days, often. And I use a Headspace app. The app, it's called Headspace. And at the moment, I'm doing a Headspace pack. It's called Creativity. And there you do an exercise where I won't go through the whole thing, but you feel the energy in your core. It's the type of meditation it's guided meditation, right? It's not just you trying to clear your thoughts. It's guided meditation. So what you do is you feel your energy in the core of your chest, in the core of your body. And then you let that energy grow and your thoughts grow, the warmth, that energy spread. And then it spreads out to the edges of your body, and you get that warm spread, and then it spreads out outside of your body, outside of your skin. You just let that keep flowing and flowing, and until it fills the whole space around you, and you keep letting that go until it fills the world, or it fills the sky, or it fills the universe, and it becomes kind of an infinite filling of yourself, of you, of your creativity. And that was exactly how my mind felt when I was hiking or watching the birds, and it felt endless. And it became kind of like an endless excitement and curiosity and capability. And then after a few of these sessions out in nature, I had the feeling like I couldn't wait to get back. I couldn't wait to start working and put my ideas on paper and talk about my podcast and talk on my podcast about it and send out cold emails, start my newsletter again and everything. I got new energy that was inside me, but I could not tap into it while I was doing my day-to-day work and, putting out the summit and trying to meet my deadlines and of course the family and the holidays and everything that you have to take care of at home. It's not possible to access that through your daily routine. So you have got to get away. And when I say get away, again, it's not going to Barcelona or to see museums or to go see a show or shopping overseas like we do here in Israel, right? So it has to be someplace where you are away from everything. Another reason, number 3, is to reconnect with your partner and with yourself. Just talking, just hanging, right? You don't have to consider anybody else. You don't have to think about anybody else. You're not thinking about the kids or the house or your plans for the next, for how to fill your next hour or deadlines or something that you have to do very soon. There's no news, which is always a source of stress. And he and I are both pretty addicted to our cell phones. So even though at home we have a no cell phone rule in the bedroom, which both of us have broken at different opportunities. But the point is we try to keep the phones out of the bedroom. There's a conscious effort because both of us are very addicted to them. We have them in our hands all the time. We're constantly checking everything. We also have at home no phones at meals for everybody, but it's not good enough. It's, the in-between times, there's still too much screen time. It's not enough of a break between screen time to really be able to let go and free yourself up. So it's important to reconnect with your partner and with yourself. Another reason, you have a lot more time. There's a lot more time to the day there when you clean out everything else and you're not looking at your social media. Your days become kind of longer and you have time to do things for hours. You can read for hours. You can hike for hours. You can count the different types of birds or find different types of birds, find different types of insects, go for a night hike. An hour walking at night next to the jungle is stunning. It's an adventure, right? Even though it's just an hour, it seems like you've been on this safari, and it's an experience. So time, it becomes different. It becomes more valuable, even though you're doing less, right? So even though we only had 1 week in Costa Rica, it was worth a lot more, and we had many more adventures and experiences than either of us had in the past, including for me, which was a big one. I did a zip line over canyons and jungles and waterfalls, and I could not sleep the entire night ahead of time. In the past, I've had the opportunity to zip line in Cambodia when I took my son. My son and I went on a trip, just the two of us, for a couple of weeks in Cambodia. And there are beautiful zip lines there, very well organized, very safe, and safe enough for me to send my 13-year-old to do it all by himself. But I still had that fear of standing on that ledge, and you have to stand on a ledge before you jump onto the zip line. And for me, the fear is not just the height. The height is not so bad for me. It's that ledge where I feel like I might fall off. So I chickened out. When I took my son, Mickey, on his trip to Cambodia, I said I was going to do it. I didn't sleep the night before, and then I chickened out. And I'm sorry, but I regret that. And I kind of also regret that he saw me chicken out, right? I didn't think that was the greatest example of a mom that I wanted him to have. So this time I was in the same situation where I was stressed all night and unhappy and making frequent trips to the loo. But I decided that there was no danger to it. It's safe. So I just closed my eyes for each part of that first jump. And then I really enjoyed the zip line itself. And I even stopped in the middle and I took photos, and we were over this incredible canyon. And though I did not really look down, I was taking pictures, and I felt myself get stronger mentally, right? I was getting over my fears, and I had this adrenaline and pride in doing things that at 50 years old, I started doing things that I had been afraid of all my life. And I gave that to myself as a gift. And what a gift is really priceless. So you have more time to enjoy wonderful new adventures. So this podcast has been all about getting off the grid and why you should get off the grid, and how that even for a short period of time, in 1 week, you can get a lot stronger. You really can recharge. You can really reconnect with yourself, reconnect with your partner, have new experiences, have an adventure. Come back to your office. You have no idea how happy I am to be in my office again. I always like my work, but now it's different. I'm back at work with renewed energy and excitement, as I said, and curiosity and enthusiasm and joy. I am podcasting joyfully and easily. So this is, I think, once every so often, you have to do it. I don't know what the correct frequency would be. I mean, there's no prescription for doing something like this. For me, it's obviously more than I have been doing in the past, and I have to put it in as time away. And I'm going to try to do it in a way that's not quite as big, right? For me to go to Costa Rica, it's very big, it's very expensive. And obviously I can't afford to do it, and I don't want to do it for that long very often. But I would like to get away for a couple of days here for a weekend by myself or with my husband or with one of the kids, and disconnect mainly from the phones, from the internet, from the news, from social media, from work, from the house, from the day-to-day, from the routine, even from exercising, which I love to do. But when I was in Costa Rica, I just took a break off of it. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to think about what I was going to eat and how I was going to eat it and all those things, and give myself that gift. So give yourselves this gift. Take a couple of days, disconnect, reconnect with yourself, and just enjoy. So have a wonderful, strong week. Next week, we have a fantastic guest on the podcast, back to our regular scheduling. Lead throughout, everybody.